Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for Succession Season 4, Episode 6, Living Plus, which Living Plus is the stupidest name for anything I have ever heard of.
Who
This,
wants to live forever?
okay, this, I love this episode, I think, way more than I should have because it's like, number one, I have a lot of good things to say about Kendall Roy, which I have trashed Kendall Roy for 3 straight weeks in these
He
videos.
was on fire. It was a surprise. Like, we'll get into all that, but when it was like presentation time, I was like, oh no, oh
Yeah,
no. We've seen when he gets on stage where it's like L to the OG, and I'm like, oh no. It's like watching Michael Scott get on stage with more money.
when he said, Roman, I have a bomber jacket for you. The
Oh yeah,
moment,
no. I was like, yeah, Roman, you're
no,
out. I totally understand. I would also be out.
the moment he brings cosplay into it with Kendall Roy, you know we're going down a very slippery slope. But there's some magic. There's some weird magic in the air for Kendall Roy. There's also
Yeah.
some very interesting dark imagery in the air for Kendall Roy. There's
hmm
so much to get into here. There's a lot with Carl. Carl of all
Carl had
people.
some teeth in this
Yeah.
episode.
Okay, all right. Well, hit that subscribe button. You know, we do not have Living Plus for you. Unfortunately, we do not have any like fake houses that we are building so that everybody can hang out with these bizarre promises of eternal life. But if you hit the subscribe button, you can at least get weekly Succession reactions and a lot of other great content.
Yeah, like Yellow Jackets, Ted Lasso, Blacklist. There's all kinds of stuff going on here at the channel. So hit that subscribe button and follow us over on our Instagram, Matt and Just TV. Okay, let's talk about my guy Roman, who really blew it in this episode in so many ways. Like, let's start with Joy.
Yeah.
His whole purpose was to go there and smooth things over with Joy. And by the end of it, he's firing her. And it was just like he wasn't listening to what she was saying, and she was right in what she was saying, where she was kind of like, listen, ATN is really leaning over here to the right, and because our company is leans the other way, there needs to be kind of just a little bit of the middle going on here, or at least just throw a couple of bones our way, because people use their pocketbooks these days to, put their money into who has the same sort of beliefs and feelings as they do. And that is absolutely true. That is happening these days. But Roman just didn't want to hear it. He's like, listen, I'm gonna funnel all this money on you and you're just gonna do what I want, sort of thing, which in the end would still hurt him because it would hurt that company because they're still attached to ATN. Like he did need to kind of meet her a little bit. He didn't have to, meet her all the way, but he had to listen to that somewhat. And he was just like, no. Oh, you don't think I'm like my dad? You're fired. I was like, oh, that's not what Logan would have done.
The the biggest problem that Roman has really throughout this episode, and this is a disaster of an episode, I think, for Roman from top to
Oh,
bottom. He
oh, yes.
he is in denial about multiple different things at the same time. I think the big thing, I think, beyond everything that's pretty obvious at this point with Logan, that he is not handling that at all. But I think he's
Mm-mm.
also in denial about how compromised he is with Jared Mencken in a lot of ways, and the nature of that relationship, that back and forth. Because if we're just sort of charting forward here, this is going to blow up in ATN's face at some point, and it is going to be dramatic. It could tank their stock prices. It could ruin their reputation. It could get really, really bad. But for right now, Roman just wants to put his hands on his ears and just be like, ba, 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 ba. He does not want to hear anything that will tell him
No.
otherwise.
No, because he ends up telling Jerry what he did because Jerry's like, listen, I just heard this about Joy.
Yeah.
What did you do? Now we're looking at lawsuits and all kinds of other stuff that's going to be happening because of this decision that you made. And what was his response? You're also going to be fired, which was just ridiculous because, I mean, you can't just keep going forward firing everybody, even if Kendall says it's okay.
Yeah, Kendall. Okay, because this is Kendall's weakest point in this episode. Kendall is treating Roman firing people like he's at the gym with Roman, and Roman is just like, I'm gonna go do a few squats over there, and he's just like, yeah, bro, that's good, bro. I got you. Yeah, let's do it. It's like, okay, you don't need to be his gym hype man, Kendall. You need to actually have like a real conversation here.
Yeah, because when we finally get to Roman kind of starting to have a shift where, this whole episode, he's just making a bunch of mistakes. And then he starts to think that maybe Kendall is also making some mistakes after talking to Shiv. And then he's talking to Jerry, and sort of too many people are in his ear. And he already knows he's been making some, missteps. That by the time this bomber jacket comes out, and Kendall's like, yeah, I got these matching for us. We're going to go out. We're going to kill it. This is going to be really great. I'm sure Roman had not only everything else that happened in this episode, but all the other times Kendall went on stage. We had him rapping. We all remember what almost happened at his 40th birthday, where he was going to be like dropped out of the
Oh boy.
sky or something.
Yeah.
Oh man, I really wish that had happened. I thought that was going to be so crazy. But I think his track record has just been really bad when he's on stage, and everything else that Roman, he backs out the door. He's like, no, I can't participate in this. And after Kendall just kills it and he really gets this big win, partially thanks to Greg. Greg really came through with that edit on Logan. Oh my goodness, to get him to be like, it's going to double everything. That we had this scene at the very end where Roman was kind of like just questioning everything he did, that he really thinks he just messed up on everything.
I think Roman's compromised, and I already said that in the context of Macon, but he's compromised when it comes to everything. Roman is not someone who should be working right now. Roman should be at home, taking some time, mourning, trying to feel a little bit better, because here are the multiple different fronts that he is putting himself in a really bad position. If he had played things so much better with Jerry could have at least, I don't want to say an ally, because he did spend most of the past 2 seasons being just things that I cannot even say on this channel with her that are incredibly inappropriate. But
Eggplant.
Yes.
We all know.
Eggplant. Roman, you are a sicko, and yet you still could have had Jerry on your side, but you have completely found a way to tank all of that. You have betrayed this woman so many different times. Yep. That seems like completely and totally gone at this point. I think Kendall, somewhere in his heart of hearts, he's not really, I don't think, emotionally capable of processing this properly, but I think he would know that, he was there for you, Roman, when you were making these big decisions. And then when Kendall's got the bomber jacket on and he's ready to go charging out there, you're backing out of the room. And okay, Kendall, okay, here's the thing, Kendall, is that if you toss enough word salads, one of them is eventually actually going to be worthy of a 5-star restaurant. And you spouted off so much nonsense in this video. You are starting talking about like at least 8 different concepts that you did not understand. I'm still not entirely sure that Kendall knows what Living Plus really is, but he had a couple of sound bites that I think were just really good, and you say something with just enough confidence, and nobody is a better poser than Kendall Roy. You can get everyone to buy into it, and he just manages to go up there. He like hits a home run in the midst of a stupor, and then just like immediately just falls down once it's over. That's the Kendall Roy story.
It really is, because this episode ends with him at the beach, riding in the sand and then diving into the ocean.
All right. Let's get dark, everybody. I don't want to. Okay, I'm putting on the tinfoil hat. This is all fictional.
Hats, let's go.
This is not the first time that Succession has either ended or came close to ending on a note where visually something terrible could be happening to Kendall at any given moment. I think we all remember the pool floaty scene that was in the past.
And also when everything happened with that waiter in the car. Water around Kendall has not been good.
No, and I think this is all foreshadowing the end of Kendall, where he is not an emotionally stable person. We have seen that he has moments of brilliance, but I think he is a guy who, at the end of the day, should never have been in Logan's orbit, who probably would have turned out a lot better and a lot healthier if he had felt like real and consistent, like paternal love. And this is not a place for him where he's ever going to be happy. And I think his life is going to end. And I worry that it is going to come at his own hand just based on the story that's being told and the way that they sort of visually present this to us. It's great that Kendall has his win, but he doesn't look happy out in the ocean. He's just kind of there with like that weird vacant look on his face.
Every time there's water around Kendall,
Yeah.
something not great is happening with him mentally. And they've been building that up since everything happened with that waiter. Every time he's near water, it's just washing over him. I will be really surprised if he makes it out of the show alive. I really just don't think that that's where it's going. And not that I want that for
Yeah.
Kendall. I don't. I would like to see where we first saw him and everything that happened with that waiter and how dark things got for him. I'd like to see him on the other side of that and doing well and thriving, but I just don't know.
I mean, not to get too meta about everything, but this is one of those instances where, as entertaining as the whole Brian Cox versus Jeremy Strong interview back and forth was about Jeremy's acting methods, I kind of wish I didn't know it, because every time Kendall goes through some of this, I mean, I don't think any of us question that Jeremy is a brilliant actor and like
Yes.
he deserves every nomination he gets, especially for this
Yes.
episode. But I'm just sitting here thinking, like, what is this guy putting himself through? And like,
I know.
I'm not even joking. Like, I'm legitimately worried that he's gonna pull a Daniel Day-Lewis and retire really early, because he's putting himself through so much suffering to play this guy. Because Kendall is a very sad character, and he's
Tough
somebody,
character.
he could have so much potential. He shows some of this potential, but even on the other side of all of it, like, what is the only way that Kendall knows how to celebrate everything? By sending Roman that video of his father.
Which completely was the thing that broke Roman. I mean, he was already in his head about not going on stage with him and kind of blowing that moment, which I still am Team Roman for that. You couldn't pay me enough to get on a stage with Kendall because you don't know what's going to happen with
Yeah.
him. His track record on stage is poor.
Yes.
So I don't, take anything away from Roman making that decision, but Roman's really beating himself up about it because he's made mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, which is kind of interesting too, because the arc for Roman over these seasons has been, he started out, as sort of this goofball mess up,
Yeah.
everything with the rocket, like all that stuff was happening with him, but as the seasons have gone on, he has been catching on to things very quickly. He's had a lot of really good ideas that people don't really listen to because he doesn't have that confidence. They had been building him up, but now that his father has passed away, and this does happen when you're in grief and you don't have time to deal with it. It's only been a few days here, right? So he hasn't had time to deal with it. He's now running this company that you backslide. And that's exactly what happened here with him.
Okay, it's time for the cousin Greg conversation. You alluded to it a little bit earlier. And
Oh man, did he ever have a win? I mean, it was a dark thing to do, but like he got it done.
the thing here, and we've seen, I think, a lot of comments in these past few videos that, oh, Greg is going to be the one who's running the show at the end of all this. And I still hope that they're not doing that, because Greg is fundamentally incompetent. And I think while we can all have fun at Logan being ridiculous and telling people certain swear words and all that, like, he was actually good at his job on some level. And I want to see at the end of this show somebody who is good at his job. But the irony here, I think, is that if we think about everyone in the Roy family in this episode, Roman is spiraling. Kendall just like stumbles backwards into something, like speaking on the fly, and even somehow managed to turn Matson's terrible tweet into something. Like, Shiv is spending most of her episode having this back and forth with Tom that I'm sure we will get into. And here's Greg actually getting something done.
Okay, listen, one edit of a video does not make you a CEO.
Yeah, true.
I know that there's a lot of people that sort of think that's gonna end up a little bit like Silicon Valley, where Big Head ends up, falling backwards into all this money and
Yeah.
he's in a position he shouldn't be in. And I don't think the show is just going to copy that show and have sort of the bumbling
Yeah.
Greg fall into being the leader of everything. Could I see him continuing to build up into a bigger position? Sure. I could actually see Tom ending up being the guy who's running everything with Shiv, something along those lines, where then Greg will move up and move up. I think Greg is going to be in a good spot, but he's going to be in a good spot because someone else is in a better spot bringing him there. And I do think that this was the episode where things are starting to really fracture with Shiv, where the brothers, they lost vision of that
Yeah.
where I know they're really under a lot of pressure with stuff. Kendall's unraveling with all of his ideas. He wants a house, he wants clouds, he wants
Yeah.
all this stuff. Roman's trying to figure out what's going on. He's blowing it, that they're not paying attention to what's happening with Shiv. They're not looping her in anymore on anything. I mean, Kendall came into this meeting and sat in Shiv's chair, didn't even pay any attention that all her stuff was there and she had to pick up her phone and go sit somewhere else like she's invisible. And nobody wants to feel invisible, especially when it's this type of situation where the brothers are like, don't worry, we got you. We're going to be co-CEOs for now, but you're going to be really 100% in all this. She can't even keep her seat. Like, that's where it's at this point. So, I mean, they really lost her. I can see that she's getting closer to Tom again, which makes complete sense.
Yeah.
When the kill list came together, thanks in a great part to Shiv, the people that were on it or that were not on it, like Tom,
Yeah.
is somebody that I think she thinks she can pull back in and have as an ally.
And Tom, as much as we want to say about Tom that, yeah, he falls upward, yeah, he can be ridiculous and all this, like, he has been working with ATN for a little
Yes.
while now. I think
Yes.
Tom is reasonably competent in what it is that he does. Like, is he right to be the sole CEO of everything right now? Maybe not. But him and Shiv together, like you mentioned, like, that could work on some level because I think Shiv is very smart. I think she's very capable in a certain sector of what Waystar is. Like, I don't know if she needs to be off doing Living Plus and this theme park stuff. But you know what? At the end of the day, maybe a lot of these like pet projects need to just be like punted into a dumpster anyway.
Well, the other thing with Shiv is, I mean, this is the first time that she's realized that the brothers are trying to like
Yeah.
tank this whole thing, that they're trying to drive up the
Yep.
price of everything, make this company so valued at this high, ridiculous amount that Madsen will be like, nah, I'm backing out of this.
Yeah.
I'm not spending that kind of money. Where Shiv was just kind of like, I thought that our deal was that we were going to sell and buy Pierce, and then that was going to be our thing. Like,
Yeah.
what happened to that kind of thing? And she's kind of floating around in these different camps now because, I mean, her brothers want to tank the deal. She thought they were doing the Pierce deal. And Madsen's on the other side kind of being like, I'm over here and I could use you on my team once I buy this. So, you interested?
I think Shiv is most poised to be successful at the end of all this. I'm not necessarily saying that she's going to end up being in charge of, Waystar or ATN or Pierce or anything else, but I think she has the tools necessary to be successful in this. And I think at the end of the day, maybe it doesn't matter so much what that something is, because if you go a decade down the road, maybe she's going to have the forward trajectory. Maybe she's going to have a way to make things work out. Maybe Tom is involved. And by the way, at this point, can we just do like a steel cage match for the Emmy for supporting actor? You can have Matthew McFadden in one corner, get Alan Ruck in the other, even though I'm extremely mad at you, Jesse Armstrong. Where was I can't even do Connor's corner in this episode.
I know.
You're fired, Jesse. If
Oh,
Roman
right.
can do it,
Don't Roman
so
the
can I.
magician. No, I think because Tom does have so much knowledge, he was working extremely closely with
Yeah.
Logan for, quite a while, and just the team. He just has so much knowledge and so much experience that I think with him, with Shiv, they would be able to get this done and run this properly. I do think that there is something there if they can get over their nonsense. And It feels like they can. And part of it from this episode was a lot of the honesty that
Yeah.
they had with each other, which is something that they did not have in their marriage. I mean, it wasn't until their wedding night that she was like, let's have an open marriage kind of thing. Like it was, they haven't had enough honesty between them where that would build the respect and the trust between them. And that's starting to come out when Tom was basically like, yeah, I wanted to marry for money. Like that was part of my goal of what I wanted for my life. You had money, I loved you. This worked out fine sort of thing. Would you have married me? We're going to go live in the trailer. You give up your jewelries, give up your watch. You are in the same spot as me. I just think there was a lot more honesty than we've seen between them.
I would have taken 10 more minutes of that Shiv and Tom conversation. That was just like, all of that was so good. There's two conversations I think are exceptional in this episode. That's one. The other, Carl. Carl. Okay, so I'm a little disappointed about Frank. I mean, Frank may just have pieced out on all this. He's, maybe doesn't want to put on any more compression socks. Maybe he's just like,
no, I think he was dedicated to Logan, and Logan is gone. He just wants his payout, and he's done. I feel like he's just done.
that's fine. You know what? You're probably the most healthy person on this show.
He really is.
It's like Connor. It's good for you that you're not involved in all of this. It's just like, sure, you're running for president and you're gonna lose.
Connor is not in a healthy state of mind. Let us not even pretend.
Okay. I want the best for you, Connor. Okay.
I think he's got the best that he can for the situation that he's in.
Okay, so Carl standing up to Kendall. I think this is important on a couple of different fronts here. I think at this point, Carl is a guy who has been talked down to for so much of his life. And I think after Logan is gone, I think he has just sort of seen this light and has realized if I'm still going to be here, I'm not going to take this anymore. I don't have to take this anymore. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? I get tempted to be kicked to the curb. I leave with a bunch of money. I get to go on and live my life. But I would just say this, Kendall. He had a very interesting comment to you about I will squeal. What does that mean? What is he going to do with that? What is Carl up to? Does Carl knows where a lot of the bodies are buried in the world of Succession, and I would just leave it at that. I think that is something that Kendall should be, to quote a certain Breaking Bad character, tread lightly.
Absolutely. Carl knows a lot, and I think he can be a real benefit to Kendall. And I think it's just sometimes Kendall just doesn't see anyone else around him when he's kind of in this mode where he's just kind of like going straight forward. No one else is around. It's just the way that it is. I will say the one moment that really got me in my feels and really broke me was this idea that Shiv has appointments by herself to have time to cry and grieve. She has to, when Tom came in, it was just like, you have to schedule your grief. It's so sad. It was one of the first times that, we've seen her really get to that point that she's crying, that she's just like, yeah, I've had time set aside so I can come in here and privately cry and then come out and continue to do my job. It was so sad. Okay, I also want to talk briefly. I've seen a lot of comments last week, and I'm sure there's going to be some more this week because Shiv was walking around that party holding a glass of champagne. So there was a lot of comments here and on Twitter and everywhere with that scene last week that she was with Madsen. She was, holding that vial and she was holding that drink. And they were like, oh man, she's pregnant. She's doing all this. If you go back and watch that scene with Madsen, she walked around with the drink and she didn't drink it. She held it to her lips once, but she barely anything happened. The same with the vial. He's like, do you want this? Sure. She held it. And then the conversation switched and she put it on the table. The same thing happened tonight. She was walking around the party holding that glass and she never drank from it. So I think she's just trying to continue to keep up appearances that pregnancy isn't there because she still hasn't told anybody.
I think what's so...
and she had that fall. So, I mean, who knows?
I think it's just knowing your characters. If you are somebody like Jesse Armstrong, it's so important to just think in every given situation, what would Shiv do? And if Shiv is somebody who at this point would not want to disclose her pregnancy to anybody because I mean this season's moving at a glacial pace. I mean we're getting these days or full
Mm-hmm.
episodes that she doesn't feel the pressure to tell anybody right now, and she
Yeah.
would continue to keep up appearances. And it totally is in Shiv's character that she would schedule time to grieve. It is incredibly sad, like you said. It's also, this is someone who does not channel emotions very well. I think
No.
she thinks that they are weaknesses a lot of the time. So I think she deals that this is necessary, but like there's I think few other just writers out there that would have the guts to like really hone it down like that and then actually have it feel believable after the fact.
And the honest thing about it is Shiv's in a bit of a crappy situation where women in general are kind of in a crappy situation when it comes to business because
Yeah.
once you're pregnant, a lot of people are kind of like, okay, well, within this time frame, she's not going to be here anymore. So, we'll kind of like phase her out so that we can bring in other people because this, that, whatever. And she's fully aware that once she tells people that she's pregnant, that could be happening to her and will likely happen to her. And she's trying to solidify her position before that happens.
The real message after all of this and after everything that we have said in this video is that in their own way, every person within the Roy family is just on a very thin wire that they could be falling off of on any given moment for a
It's
number
true.
of reasons. They are all in danger. And we have 4 episodes left on that super happy
Oh,
note.
that's all that's left,
Yeah.
guys.
Until Connor becomes president and then the show ends and then we're all just very, very sad.
Spin off,
Spin
spin
off,
off. No,
spin.
I know
No,
there's
no,
not going to be one, but that's fine.
I can dream. Okay, all right. Well, we will wrap all this up, but hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We got to go get some bomber jackets. We will see you here next time.